Since fighting was one of the biggest aspects of Ranma 1/2, naturally the series had several video games based on it. I'll start with Ranma 1/2 Neighborhood Combat for the Super Famicom, which is the game that IREM turned into Street Combat in the States. Now, let's find out if this game is any better. Holy crap, this is much better! I mean, it still isn't anywhere near as good as things like Street Fighter 2, but this is so much better than Street Combat. In terms of presentation, it's a huge improvement. It doesn't look anywhere near as cluttered or as messy as Street Combat, and the music, just listen. I have to say anything. Strange button layout remains the same, but the controls are less stiff and more responsive. The characters also move faster, so that helps. I find it hilarious that Street Combat was meant to be the hip and cool version of this game, when a game with a dual-gendered main character is the more presentable version. That's really saying something. I mean, just look at what they did to Ryoga.
Somebody shoot me!
What looks more presentable to you? This? Okay. Overall, I think this game is quite decent. It isn't that great, but in comparison to... it's much better. Then there was a sequel for the Super Famicom and Super Nintendo, Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle, which was also the name of the third season. This game was also released in the US and in Europe. The story of this game is that Principal Kuno, who is batshit crazy, set up a tournament where the prize is getting out of doing schoolwork. If you lose, it's makeup test hell. What makes no sense about this is if you play as female Ranma, it's still the same story. As I recall, Principal Kuno, actually all of the Kunos, didn't know that Ranma and his female form were the same person. Whatever, it's just a video game. This game has a much bigger character section, as the first one only had both forms of Ranma to play as. However, presentation-wise, it's not that good. The graphics are a bit strange, and the characters look like they're freaking glowing. The music isn't so great either. The quality of the controls actually depends on what version you play. In the Japanese and American versions, they work alright, but in the European version by Ocean, it is so stiff. Speaking of the European version, they actually screwed up some of the names. Like Frederick. Frederick! Frederick! Does this look like a Frederick to you? The game really isn't that great, but I guess if you like the show, it's worth checking out. The third fighting game was only released in Japan, and was developed by Rumixsoft instead of NCS Maya. This one is much more of a Street Fighter 2 clone than the others. However, that actually enhances the game instead of ruining it. This is actually the best of the three Super Famicom Ranma fighting games. The controls are better than ever, the graphics are very close to the anime, and the gameplay is fast and fun. The music isn't that memorable, but thankfully it's not ear-grating. The game also has a tag team mode, where you can change between characters in the middle of a battle. My only real gripe with the game is the character selection could be a bit better. I mean, yeah, you have Ranma, Ryoga, Akane, Kuno, Ukyo, but do we really need dumb old Hinako and that stupid bitch Mariko? I don't think so. Overall, this is a pretty good fighting game. Now, on the Super Famicom, there were two other Ranma games, a puzzle game and an RPG. The puzzle game is actually quite complex and unique, as it makes use of elements from other genres. The RPG, on the other hand, is quite standard, but enjoyable, and the battle system is actually pretty good. For the most part, the battle system is quite standard to turn-based RPGs. However, something I've never really seen before in a turn-based RPG is the Rumble mode. In this Rumble mode, you can simply press the X button, and the battles will go much faster. However, you can exit this mode anytime you feel like, in case if you're losing too much HP and you need to heal. Therefore, some of the more useless battles won't be so much of an annoyance. Not to mention, the graphics are pretty good, aside from the characters being forced to walk even when they're not moving. And the game has some pretty good battle themes. Overall, this is another good game from Rumixsoft. On the Game Boy, there were three Ranma games. The first one is a game very similar to the Adventures of Lolo on the NES. It also has a stage select screen similar to Mega Man's, making it more non-linear. However, the graphics are terrible, even for Game Boy standards, which doesn't really ruin the game, but I feel it should just be mentioned. The second one is a combination between an RPG, a side-scroller, and a fighting game. This game is actually pretty good and rather immersive. However, since I can't read Japanese, I don't really know what's going on half the time, and I just have to run around doing anything possible to progress. Even with that, it's still pretty fun. The third is a strange trivia game. Basically, you walk around an RPG-esque overworld, talking to characters and answering questions. However, since I can't read Japanese, I can't really play it. On the Sega CD, there was White Orchid Serenade. It's one of those animated movie games with little gameplay. The animation is good sometimes, but other times it can be just flat out laughable. Look how we walk by only twitching our legs! I don't really know how to judge this game, but you can pass on it. On the PlayStation, there was another fighting game. This one I can't really judge either because I don't have it. From what I've heard, the game is bullcrap. It's basically a Virtua Fighter and Tekken-style fighting game. However, sometimes water will pour from the top of the screen, changing the player to their cursed forms, which is an interesting idea. The game also makes use of full-motion video cutscenes, and they look awful. Holy fucking shit! shit, look at homicide. I mean, Lord, I'm going to have nightmares from that. I mean, that would make Ouija piss himself. It would make Chuck Norris cry. Apparently, the story is similar to the back, phone demon, back. I need to move on to the next game. There were also 3 Ranma games for the PC Engine, and I don't have a PC Engine. The first is a beat-em-up, similar to Kung Fu, taking place throughout the early stories of the manga, which I never read. From what I've heard, the manga is very close to the anime. However, I haven't heard great things about this game. The second one is very similar to the Sega CD game. Now, the last one is a fighting game starting from where the first PC Engine game left off. The only thing I've heard about this one is praise. I've seen gameplay footage of this one on YouTube, and it actually looks pretty fun. The graphics are quite good from what I've seen. The only song I've heard is a synthesized instrumental remix of the main theme, which I never really cared for, but I love this remix. So yeah, those are the Ranma games. Pretty much all of them. What do I say? Yay for laziness!